Hi, so we're looking at Substance Designer and I wanted to show you a workflow or a kind of method that was taught to me by Wes McDermott, who teaches Substance Designer. So for me it was incredibly helpful, so I thought I should really pass it down to you. If you've seen the webinar on Substance with Wes, you'll have heard this already. But there was a lot to take in that webinar, so you might have missed it. Anyway, the reason why I use Substance is because I think it's great to work with roughness and with the whole PBR workflow. However, you don't have to, and in fact I'll take the textures out to Photoshop so that we can sort of play around. But we'll do that in the next video when we build an actual texture. Now I just want to get you up to scratch with the very basics of Substance. It looks a bit hermetical to me when I first opened it, but really, like everything, once you've gone past the first hurdle, it's super easy. Well, super easy. It's much simpler. So I've just started off a new completely blank version of the software, and now all I'm going to do is create a new package here, which is my sort of explorer. So if I open a Substance, it's going to open in here, and within that package I'm going to create a new Substance graph. Okay, so I'll call it new graph, and here I'm going to make it relative to parent, and I'm going to make it on 1024 for now. Alright, or I'll just call it PBR example. Alright, so I want to make sure this is also selected physically based with the metallic roughness. Alright, so we just press OK on this, and it creates our package with the preview down below with a nice shiny cube. So before we get into anything, I'm going to create a node. So I want to right click on this grid here, create a node, add node, and I'm going to type on the keyboard. No, we're just going to press space bar. I'm going to look for a base material node. Alright, so literally you don't need to know anything about Substance. If you do, that's great. If you don't, you just follow my steps, and literally that's all you need to know for now to get started. So this has created a base material node that we're gonna look at in a second, but for now we need to connect it to these nodes here, and for that I just want to make sure that it's set on material up here, and I'm just going to drag my node to the first one up there, and you see that all my nodes are connected. So that's great. My cube has changed color, and so now I select my base material node, and you'll see that I've got a set of controls here, and that's really going to help us to understand how PBR works. First of all, I've got a color, and that color is very conveniently set to gray. Alright, so if I change my value here, you can see that I'm going to change the color here in the preview. So I'll set that back to mid-gray where it was. So here, the metallic, you see that our cube kind of looks a little bit metallic, and for the good reason that here our metallic is set to white. So you'll probably already know metallic is only effectively a switch, whether it's metallic or not metallic. So here it's pure white, and we're going to set that to pure black, okay, because generally we'll be working on non-metallic, and if we work on metallic, well, it's worth noted that if we work on metallic, the workflow is a little bit different for the base color, in the sense that the base color is going to be the color of our reflection. So if we're a little bit familiar with V-Ray or things like that, you know that the reflection color is going to affect your the color of the material, the color of the reflection. Whereas here, well, it's not the diffuse color, it's the albedo now, or the base color here is actually affecting the color of the reflection when we're set to metallic. If we set the slider to 0 and there's no metallic, then we're not affecting the color of the reflection so much, but it's more back to this sort of this diffuse color. Anyway, so we'll just put the saturation back down to give us a nice mid gray color. I'll put that the hue back to 0. Right, so now when we've got our metallic on 0, our color on mid gray, let's go into the roughness, and you'll see that my value here is sort of set on 64, and the roughness affects the blurriness of the reflection. So we'll see that if I sort of click Shift and Control Shift and right mouse button, I'm actually making that environment rotate, which can be useful to assess the reflection. So here on my base material, I can start playing with this roughness value, and so if I bring that down to 0, you see that my reflections get a lot sharper. And if I bring that up to high value, my reflection get very blurry. So what's really interesting in this base material is that we have the ability to add a grunge amount, and so what's going to happen with this grunge is really we're going to spend a lot of time working with this, because the roughness, the concept of roughness is a little bit new to us, but it really is where the micro displacement is going to happen. Not so much the micro displacement, but the micro variation. And this, to me, is very evocative to the story of the material. It's really, if you imagine a piece of wood that's been varnished and has been sort of knocked around and used for a long time, the amount of the variation on the varnish is what we are going to express with our roughness map. And that's why it's so exciting, because it's really there that we show how the material has been used. It's the way I really internalized it, really understood it, was the way the material has actually been used is kind of or created, made. So it's more the way the material actually feels to the touch when we work with the roughness. Of course, the normal is also very important. So here in our base material we've got height and the user defined maps. Right, so what we are going to do in the next video is we are going to start bringing in our texture maps and build the texture using this base map. But you'll see that currently there's nothing in it, so we'll start playing with that. But this material is really great to have a great sense of what the roughness does, you know, on a very interactive way. So if you've got substance, feel free to play around and see what that does with that. So I'll see you in the next video, where we'll take this to the next level and create a nice concrete for the floor.